of schools. A very good morning, my good man, Stephen Mbide. Yes, what's the latest?
Good morning to you, Romeo Wusiku. I'm coming to you from Chambogo at the Directorate of Education Standards, and I'm with the Acting Commissioner of Teacher Education Standards, Tima Francis, and she's going to help me understand how far they've gone as the Minister of Education on the inspection of schools, because we know up to now, after the schools were opened last week for the finalists and institutions, high institutions of learning, many students are still at home just because their schools and institutions haven't yet been able to at least meet the guidelines that were set by government, and that are the standard operating procedures for fighting COVID-19. But she's going to help me understand how far they've moved. Good morning to you, Tima Francis.
Good morning to you. So far, inspection has been taking place for the last 1 week plus, through even weekends, to be able to meet the timelines. And as we speak, in other regions other than Central, in the northern region, all the districts have completed their inspections. In the eastern region, western region, they all completed. And for Central, for Kampala, we have a balance of about 20 schools that are not yet completed. And this morning, they will be able to have 100% completion. It's in Wakiso that we still have about 20% not inspected. But I've been touching base with our teams, and they have promised that by Tuesday, they would have completed all the schools.
So what will happen for those which will not be able to at least meet the guidelines? For the students, won't it impact negatively on their education?
Fortunately, according to the inspection report, schools that are not meeting are very few. If I give example of Western region, they're about 5.7%, Northern region about 10%. Even in the Central here, Kampala, where they are near to over 90%, they're about 3-point-something% not complying with the standards. And the numbers in those schools are really few in terms of enrollment, because we're looking at only candidate classes. And they will be, they've already been advised for those learners to be fixed in other schools. And the local governments have been in the forefront of identifying schools where these children can access learning.
What I gather is that there are schools that you've been given some warning that, a leeway that you can open, but you have to meet these standards in time. What are those guidelines that they haven't yet been able to fulfill, that you need them to fulfill in these 2 weeks?
When we reviewed the reports, most of them, there were two main standards that were lacking. One of them was on safety of learners, and the other one was on management. And under management, there were really documentation issues, because it's not just enough to say you have hand-washing facilities, you have space, but we want to see the operational guidelines. For example, what are the handling operational guidelines? If children come, if you identify a case, how would you handle such a problem? How do you review the school programs and all that? So those are things that we wanted them to have in place, so that we are aware that even when children are there, they are kind of symbols of management, which is aligned to the SOPs. And the other one, under safety of learners, basically there were issues of training and then the temperature guns. So there were really things that could be met within the 1 week. And as I speak now, most of the schools worked really hard. And by Saturday and Sunday, the inspectors in the districts informed us that they had met. And I think by today, those schools are also operating. So there are really few underpending that have not been able to meet it. But I think in the next 2 weeks, all those schools would have been cleared. Yes.
There's an unfortunate story that came from Chikuwe district that 13 teachers are tested positive for COVID-19. I don't know, just they opened yesterday and now they are testing positive. Isn't this a blow to the efforts of reopening schools, and even for the learners that are still at home? Because I think these For those, for example, those which have been opened, are you sending teams to make sure that they follow up and make sure that these guidelines are put into practice day and night?
Yes, we are cognizant of the fact that there can be laxity, because once schools meet the guidelines, they may think that is that. But for us, that is just a baseline. At least being able to tell us at what level schools are, because most of these are in terms of percentages. But we are going to have another round of follow-up inspections and a bigger team this time. Both a combined team from Ministry of Education and from Directorate of Education Standards, working together with our colleagues in local governments. So there is going to be follow-up, but there's also going to be constant information feedback from schools. So we appeal to everybody, because it's a shared responsibility, that in case you see that in some schools there's laxity, let us know. Because the schools are too many and we may not know what is happening in every school on a daily basis. But we think that where we have strong management, the school management committees, the board of governors, and strong parent teachers associations, if they worked together, then we should be able to ensure that schools continue with the SOPs as we require them to do.
Let's also talk about the teachers that you entirely supervise with their standards. Many of them have been home for the last 7 months, and then many of them are going to be, like, for example, school has many classes, but now they only have P7 students, pupils, and senior 4 students, as well as senior 6. So now what happens with these teachers who have not been able to at least do a daily exercise, they haven't been upgraded to a standards, been home for 7 months. Are you able to monitor the quality of work they are giving these students, because you have less time to the exams?
Yes, what we are doing, we are going to have a twofold type of inspection. When we are going to do the follow-up, we are also going to do classroom observation. Already we have tools that we had developed earlier for effective teaching and those for effective management. We will continue with the ones that we are using for ensuring that schools keep to the SOPs, but we are also going to pick up the classroom observation tool to ensure that the focus on learning outcomes is done the way it's required. Because as you've mentioned clearly, the time is not on our side, but we also want teaching to be done professionally. Otherwise, we'll end up having schools just coaching children, and at the end of it all, they would have not learned, but they would be teaching them to do examinations. So we are going to ensure that the two type of inspections still continue, focusing on learning outcomes and also focusing on the standard operating procedures.
Thank you so much. Your last word to those who are watching us, and especially those in education institutions, now that you're doing inspection.
Yes, the first inspectors are really the head teachers and the principals of schools. And we expect them to continue ensuring that they improve day and day, but also to keep to the SOPs. But we are also appealing to all the other key players, because education is a shared responsibility. And we know that some people will want to flout these regulations, maybe even wanting to bring on board other classes illegally, but we are appealing to them and actually warning, because the certificates that we have issued clearly state that once we find that you are not operating within, we will withdraw those certificates and close the institutions. So we really appeal that we all keep to the standard operating procedures until further communications can be given to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Atima Francis. She is the Acting Commissioner for Teacher Education Standards here at the Directorate of Education Standards in the Ministry of Education and Sports. We've been here at our office here in Chambogo. Thank you so much for speaking to us and sharing with us this vital information. This is Stephen Mbide of FSO Chibuga. Thank you so much. Handing you back to Romeo Busiku, who is in the studios to wrap up Morning at NTV.